deal scenario. Okay, to help us get an idea of what is ahead, let's turn to Nile Gardiner, the director of the Margaret Thatcher Centre for Freedom at the Heritage Foundation. Also Matthew Doyle, Prime Minister Tony Blair's former political director. Why don't we start with you then, Matthew? The thing that she wins the vote, but the maths of the deal don't change. The maths when it comes to Parliament, the maths when it comes to Brussels.
You're absolutely right. And what we now have are some hard numbers in this. We know that there are 117 Conservative MPs who didn't support her in the ballot today. It's inconceivable that those MPs will somehow vote for the deal when it comes back to Parliament. And so we have confirmation of what, in a sense, we've known all along, and that is that she doesn't have the numbers for this deal to come through. And there's nothing that the European Council are going to be able to say to her this week that is ultimately going to change that.
Nile Gardiner, I know you've been saying that Britain needs a stronger Conservative leader, that this deal is going nowhere. The bottom line is that Mrs. May has been negotiating this for, what, over 2 years now. Europe is saying we're not open to renegotiating. What is the alternative, realistic alternative to this deal?
Well, I think the fact is that Theresa May isn't going to get anything at all from the European Union tomorrow in Brussels. I think that so far her negotiations with the EU have been a real failure. And the fact that over a third of her own MPs will no longer support her means that she's a gravely weakened figure. She survived the vote, but I think her authority within the Conservative Party has been significantly diminished. And there's no way that she's going to get her EU exit deal through Parliament. I think that the chances of any kind of win for Theresa May are absolutely zero. The only option, I think, for the Prime Minister is to prepare Britain for a no-deal exit. I think that's the best that she can do. That is the only realistic way forward now.
She's technically safe for a year under the rules that exist. But, Niall, I mean, you make a good point there in terms of her being weakened. I guess the role of her cabinet is going to be important going forward. They stood firm pre-vote, but post-vote, will they stick with her? I mean, you talked about Margaret Thatcher. It's worth remembering it was the cabinet that ended the premiership of Margaret Thatcher, Ted Heath as well. Do you think that she can survive long-term? Will she be there for this?
Well, I think that Theresa May will certainly try to struggle through until March 29th, 2019. I expect that she will certainly leave soon after, I think, Brexit officially begins at the end of March. She may not, though, survive that long. It really depends on whether her cabinet actually rallies around her over the course of the next few weeks. But I have to say that the fact that she lost a majority of her backbenchers, MPs who are not on the ministerial payroll, this is a very damaging blow to her authority within the Conservative Party. And I'm not absolutely convinced. I think that she can actually survive over the course of the next few weeks. Already, I think you've seen a number of her own cabinet ministers on manoeuvres over the past couple of days, and who knows actually how they actually voted in the actual vote itself. So, so I do think her position is very, very precarious at this moment.
I want to pick up on something that you said, Niall, and to you, Matthew. I mean, do you agree with Niall when he says that a no-deal Brexit is the only way forward? And if that's the case, I mean, what is the contingency plan for such a scenario? You have the Bank of England that has said that a no-deal Brexit could lead to, what, a 30% decrease, plunge in house prices?
No, I don't fundamentally believe that a no-deal Brexit will happen, not least because there isn't a majority in Parliament for it. And in any event, no deal is not a specific set of proposals. No deal is a default where you have to get into all sorts of individual negotiations across different sectors to try and avoid the worst-case scenario. Look, where I fundamentally disagree with Niall is this idea that somehow Theresa May hasn't got as good a deal as it was possible to get in these negotiations. The fact is there is zero evidence that a change in Conservative Party leader, or for that matter, a change in party and a change in government, would lead to Brussels fundamentally changing its negotiating position. These issues,
Matthew,
like
Matthew, I guess the reality is the reality, and you tell me, the reality that there is no single proposition that will satisfy a majority of people in Parliament. So nothing's going to work, or is that just a bit too depressing?
Well, I think they will avoid a no-deal Brexit ultimately, but you're right. At the moment, none of the different positions have got a majority. That's why I think we are getting ever closer to one of two scenarios happening, i.e. another general election, or personally what I think is more likely, there being another referendum, because the political deadlock in Westminster just cannot be broken. Now, there are serious challenges with that and getting it through Parliament, not least legislating on what the question would be and so on. But as we sit here today, then the issue isn't the leader of the Conservative Party, or for that matter, the leader of the Labour Party. The issue is that fundamentally, the promises that were made in the 2016 referendum cannot be delivered. And my personal view is that there's no deal that we'd get that in any event would be better than our existing membership of the European Union.
Seems like a no-win situation. I mean, if the promises can't be delivered on, if the political deadlock in Britain can't be broken, I mean, Niles, now what's the way forward? I mean, should be the strategy moving forward, especially as Mrs. May now is headed to Brussels to eke out some sort of reassurance?
She hopes.
I think what is most important now is for the will of the British people to be implemented, and 17.4 million Britons voted for Brexit in June 2016. Their will has to be implemented. It's also written into legislation. Brexit will take place March 29th, 2019, and I think a no deal is the most likely scenario. There's no majority in Parliament for a vote of no confidence in the Conservative government, nor is there a majority for a second referendum. And let's not forget that Jeremy Corbyn himself has not supported a second referendum. And so the reality is you are still going to have a Conservative government. A Conservative government is not going to hold a second referendum. I think they will honour the will of the British people here. But the only way to do that is to move forward with a no-deal Brexit that will definitely deliver a clean exit from the European Union.